said the Lions won a game. Man, we going all the way, baby. We about to celebrate.
And we are back. Great Lakes State Football, the very best podcast in the state of Michigan that discusses every level of football. I'm Vince.
Or Doggy Dog.
Bert.
And this is episode 14. And we do have another guest this week. Surprise, surprise, another Hillsdale guest. The Chargers. I'm sure everyone is shocked to hear we are going to have another Hillsdale guest on. Another former teammate of mine, Casey Schukow, will be joining us here later in the episode to discuss a few topics, but primarily to come on and discuss mental health and athletes, specifically when it comes to substance abuse and kind of the pressure that athletes are put under. He actually wrote an article that was published in a peer-reviewed academic journal website, HPHR, formerly the Harvard Public Health Review. So that's pretty cool that we're going to have him on and talk about that article that he wrote. But before we get to that, we do have a few levels of football here in the state of Michigan that we are going to discuss, starting with high school MHSAA football. First thing we want to discuss is we put out our second regional ranking for high school football teams since 2010, ranked by win percentage since 2010. 10 days ago, we put out on Twitter and Instagram our regional ranking for teams since 2010, ranked by win percentage for the greater Lansing area. And today, as we're recording this on Tuesday, this morning, we did put out our greater Grand Rapids rankings. Gentlemen, any thoughts on this? I have a few things that I thought were noteworthy.
I can't believe both Zeeland schools are on this list, which is kind of crazy to me.
It's not that surprising to me, honestly.
I'm surprised how high Zeeland West was. I didn't realize how I knew they were good. I knew both the Zeeland teams were very, very good, but I was shocked to discover after we added it all up that since 2010, Zeeland West would be number 3.
Yeah. They've had a lot of state finals appearances. I'm honestly surprised that Zeeland East isn't a little bit higher. It seems like, well, since we got this since 2010, I've been living on the west side of the state since 2011. One of my former roommates went to Zeeland East, so I've kind of followed them fairly closely over the years. But yeah, I mean, imagine if they were the same high school. Did you know those high schools are literally right next to each other? They share classes between the high schools. They're on the same campus. They share the same football field.
It's like Plymouth, right? Like Plymouth, Salem, Canton, and Plymouth, Canton, and Salem, or whatever. How all three of those high schools are all
Canton and Salem.
So what dictates what school you're on? If you're just east or west of it?
There's certain lines, like district lines. But yeah, they share all the same academic fields. It's right next to my work. You literally walk. It's on. You don't even have to cross the street to go to the other high school.
Well, what's crazy about Zeeland West is they've only existed since 2005. So it's probably a similar situation like Traverse City West and Traverse City Central, how those schools split back in the 90s or 80s or whenever it was. Zeeland East, I don't know if it was, I don't know the history, but Zeeland East has existed for a very long time. And then in 2005, they split into 2 schools. I mean, if you go back, Zeeland East enrollment in 2003 was 1,500, 2004, 1,500. Then 2005, it dropped to 850. Because the 2 schools split up. And what's crazy about Zeeland West is they've only had 17 football seasons in school history. They have 1 losing season in those 17 years and one other season where they didn't make the playoffs. So they've made the playoffs 15 times. And they've made the state championship 5 times in that stretch. Crazy.
Also, how about how dense Muskegon is from like just a good football standpoint? I mean, you've got Muskegon High, you've got Muskegon Oak Ridge, you got Muskegon Catholic Central, you got Mona Shores, you got Montague, which is in that general vicinity. Pretty crazy from that standpoint as well. The Muskegon area just loaded with athletes.
Yeah, they've always been notoriously good for football. I don't know why. I mean, why them or somewhere else?
Why that county? The Muskegon County. Yeah,
it's not a super nice area just in general, but
there's some really nice areas in Muskegon. Let's be honest. But yeah, Muskegon Heights was a really good team too, and I think their school actually folded.
No, they still exist, but their football program has struggled in recent.
Okay. Yeah, I know they used to have a really good basketball team. I think it might be like Muskegon Academy now or something. But yeah, I know that's a good point, Corey, about the Muskegon. That was one thing that I found interesting. The last interesting one for me was Saugatuck on the list. I hear about all
that
a lot
surprised
of the
me.
schools in the top 15 you hear about a lot, and a lot of them have made semifinals or state finals appearances in the last decade plus. But yeah, Saugatuck, they must just run through their conference every year and get rolled in the playoffs.
Saugatuck has actually made 2 state title appearances in this stretch. So they went to the state championship in 2017 and got beat by PW, who was near the top. Pelham Westphalia was near the top of our list, number 2 on our list for our Greater Lansing one. They got beat 21-0 by PW back in 2017. And then in 2010, the year we started this list, they went to the state championship and got blown out by Sacred Heart, which in Mount Pleasant, that's a school that's just had unbelievable amounts of success for a long time. Has since unfortunately moved to 8-man football. But still, Saugatuck has just been super steady. I mean, since 2010, they got 10 wins, 9 wins, 5 wins, 8, 5, 10, 10, 10, 9, 3, 3, 6, which again was enough success, to sneak into this list at number 12. Not even sneak in, pretty secure at number 12.
I will say
above Unity Christian, above Hudsonville Unity Christian.
I was surprised that Grand Rapids South Christian and Byron Center didn't crack the top 15. I know they just narrowly missed out, but those are the 2 schools that I thought for sure would have been the top 15.
The discrepancy in games played also is shocking to me. How you have like a Grand Rapids Catholic Central and a Muskegon, they're playing greater than 150 games in this stretch, and then it drops down. I mean, there's teams that are hardly playing 110 games. So it's just obviously how many state championship runs you make, which dictates that. But
it's extra games.
Yeah, it's just crazy to me. I mean, you're looking at Muskegon, they're at 155, and then Catholic Central's actually played less games.
I mean, go to the very next team. Muskegon's played 155. Zeeland West has played 136. That's a difference of almost 20 games just from number 2 to number 3.
Yeah.
That's just how many state title playoff runs Muskegon's made.
That's 2.5 seasons of high school football.
Muskegon has 20 more wins than Zeeland West. From the number 2 to the number 3 team, Muskegon has 20 more wins. That's crazy.
And we must note that Muskegon has more wins than Grand Rapids Catholic Central, technically.
Yeah, so this list is by win percentage, not by total wins. And Grand Rapids Catholic Central in this time period has 3 fewer wins, but 5 fewer losses, which is noteworthy. I mean, see, that's why we kept that on the list. I think the wins and losses are pretty crazy too. You go for number 6 and number 7. This is interesting. Rockford is 105 and 33 in the stretch. Grand Rapids West Catholic is 114 and 36, and just falls behind them by 1/100th of a percent. So it's interesting how percentages work out in that way. The only other thing that I would say stands out to me is East Grand Rapids still sneaking at number 15. Anyone who's followed the Grand Rapids area of football, East Grand Rapids, incredible success for a long period of time. Unfortunately, since 2010, since we started this list, their success has not nearly been as great as it was before 2010. But even so, 2010, they went 14-0. And they have had 3 or 4 9-win seasons and a couple 8-win seasons since then. So it was just enough for them to sneak on this list at number 15. But obviously, if we would have done before 2010, they had a lot of 13-1, 14-0 seasons before that. Lowell's another one who is on this list at number 11, who had a lot of success in the 2000s and early 2010s. And has struggled more in the last 5 years or so since Coach Dean stepped down. So very interesting there. There's a few programs on this list too that I think people would imagine would have been higher, but maybe didn't realize that they've been on the rise in the last 5 to 6 years. Mona Shores, good example. Unity Christian, good example. Grand Rapids Christian, teams who maybe before 2010 or early 2010s, not quite as much success. And then, later in the decade, winning a lot of games. So
only one OK Red team, Rockford.
Yeah, that's something else I noticed. The OK Red obviously being the largest schools in the Grand Rapids area. We talked about this before, how the greater Grand Rapids area doesn't have a lot of D1 schools outside of the OK Red. I think Grand Rapids Union is the only D1 school not in the OK Red, I believe, in the Grand Rapids area.
Sounds
Rockford's the only D1 school on this list.
Correct. Yep, because all the other D1 schools, Grand Rapids Union, again, has not had a lot of success. And then the other D1 schools are in the OK Red. But most of those schools, their schedules are so tough. They always get beat by Rockford. So they just don't see quite as much success.
Yeah.
Unless you guys have anything else to add with this list, the only thing I was going to say is we will be putting out a poll again to see which region we do next. Our poll we're going to probably put off Detroit just because that's going to be a daunting task to figure out how we want to do Detroit. If we're going to have to split Detroit up into more than one area because there's so many schools. But we'll probably have South Central, Battle Creek, Kalamazoo area as an option. Central South Michigan, Jackson area, the UP, and then we'll add in the list Northern Michigan, everything above.
Thumb area, Saginaw,
Saginaw,
yeah.
Midland area,
Thumb Bay,
Flint,
5 or
Saginaw.
6.
Yeah, I don't know.
5 or 6 other sections we'll look at.
We'll split it up into several other regions, but yeah, very interesting. It's a lot of fun kind of breaking it down. It seems like a lot of people are really enjoying these posts because it is an interesting recent section of data to pull from. Next thing, MHSAA news related. Grand Blank's head coach, Clint Alexander, is resigning. He is stepping down after 5 years as the head coach. This is noteworthy because Grand Blank under Coach Alexander has seen significant success culminating in this season with a 12-1 record, best record in school history. Before this season, they had never even won 10 games, they had won 10 games one other time in school history back in 1985. And then this year they went 12-1. So easily the most successful season in school history. Coach Alexander reportedly has told people that his wife got a job in Virginia. He has family that lives there. So it's just a good move for him. It's just pretty shocking, to see after a program that had their best season in school history for their coach to leave.
He accepted a job at another school that we did find out in Virginia. So he's resigning from one and picking up where he left off at another one.
Good luck to Coach Alexander. We wish him the very best. Unfortunately, losing a great coach here in the state of Michigan. Next bit of MHSAA news. It was reported by Drew Kochani, sports editor for Petoskey News, that Petoskey is currently looking for a head coach. This is noteworthy because I don't know if you haven't seen before, and we did retweet this on Twitter when it was posted. Petoskey has a gorgeous facility for football, athletics in general. Very nice. And one of the biggest schools in northern Michigan outside of Traverse City. Easily one of the best fields, I would say, up in northern Michigan. So Petoskey, the Northmen, looking for a job or looking for a coach to take that job. So if you're looking to coach high school football, I want a nice facility, fresh start. Petoskey, Michigan, looking for you. Last bit of MHSAA news here is Dearborn Divine Child has hired a new coach, Christopher Laney. He had been with the program since 2012, so they're hiring within and moving into the head coaching position. And again, this is noteworthy, with currently the University of Michigan football winning the Big Ten championship. Aiden Hutchinson is a Dearborn Divine Child grad, was just up for the Heisman. So pretty cool. Small school, small private school in Michigan, that one of their former football players was a Heisman candidate, and they just got a new head coach. Wishing the best of luck to them. All right, moving on to D3. There's one tiny thing for here for the MIAA D3 news. Hope College, their O-line coach, Hunter Thomas, was just promoted to their recruiting coordinator. Just a tiny bit of tidbit news there from the MIAA champions for 2021. Brett, I believe I might have skipped you here. Did you have your fact of the week you want to sneak in before we move any further?
I do. So before we go into the D2 level of news for this week, I do have my fact of the week. And my fact of the week is, so Tony Anise, as we've shared, he's had the top winning records or winning percentage records, both at GRCC and Ferris over the last 10 plus years. And also we had talked about his success at Muskegon High School prior to his stint at Grand Rapids Community College. But with all that success comes great coaches and also great players. So my question of the week is, how many current coaches within the GLIAC are part of the Tony Annese coaching tree? This is kind of an easier question because there's a limited amount of teams in the GLIAC. But let's see if you can get the number and name the school and even the name.
So are you counting? You're counting current GLIAC schools as of the 2022 season?
Head coaches, yep.
Head coaches.
Oh, just head coaches.
Just head coaches.
2.
Corey
3.
says 2.
3.
Corey says 3.
Northern Michigan.
Well, hold on. Let's see if Vince has got a guess too.
I honestly have no idea. I haven't looked into this at all. So if we're talking about head coaches in the GLIAC who are part of Tony Annese's coaching tree since he's been coaching.
Can I name them now?
Yes.
But that's the question, right, Brett?
That was the question. But
okay.
I know
you broke up. Sorry, just your audio went out a couple times. I was just confirming. I really can't begin to guess because I'm not that familiar with, outside of Keith Otterbein at Hillsdale College. I am not that familiar. And Matt Mitchell at Grand Valley, Tony Annese at Ferris State, or at Hillsdale doesn't even count because they're in the GMAC. And I'm trying to think. So you got Wayne State, you got Davenport, you got Northwood's not in the GLIAC anymore. Northern and Tech 2.
It says 2.
I say 2.
I can name them.
Corey
Correct
knows.
answer is 3. Corey,
Oh, wow.
I know
Corey's
him and
right.
I have talked about it before. I was hoping you didn't remember, but I thought it was an interesting fact that I wanted.
Yeah, it is interesting. Who is it?
Oh, let's see if Corey knows the schools. He probably won't know the names.
Yeah, it's Sparky at Davenport. I don't know Northern's coach, but he's a Ferris guy, and then Saginaw Valley's guy's a Ferris guy. I said 2, and then I remember that Saginaw's guy came from Ferris.
Yeah,
too.
it's Sparky McEwen from Davenport, Kyle Nystrom from Northern, and Ryan Brady from Saginaw Valley. So there's 3. And he's had a number of other coaches to take jobs elsewhere. I know I mentioned about doing maybe a coaching tree of his.
Yeah.
So all 3 of those head coaches coached for him at Ferris or just have coached with him before?
At Ferris.
Wow.
He's had some coaches from GRCC that moved on to other jobs too, and even Muskegon. But yeah, he's got a pretty attractive network. Not
That's
quite
awesome.
to the level of Saban, but
I was going to say, he's like the D2 Saban, baby.
I mean, even Jim Harbaugh's got a pretty attractive network now too. It seems like he's got guys leaving every year to get upgraded positions. But no, for D2, he's got to be the most decorated. But we'll throw it on the for those that aren't listening, we'll put it on the Twitter feed and
Put it on a poll, baby.
Right. Yeah.
Brett will put out a poll and see what people. If you were listening, you'd know the answer. That was like my trivia question last week. Some people got it and some people didn't. Well, all right, we'll move into the Division II news here. There's only 2 little things we're going to talk about before we get into FBS and roll into our guest. Ferris State is just announced. Actually, we found the article from Central Washington. So Central Washington announced that they're opening their season with Ferris State this fall. Central Washington, not the most success in recent years. They did go to the playoffs in 2021, losing first round Northwest Missouri State, who Ferris State beat pretty handily. And then they had a playoff appearance in 2017. Actually, were 11-0 and got a first round bye. They were the number 1 seed in their region in 2017. So they've had a couple seasons in the last 5 years with some success. Another 7 and 8 win season in that span as well. Pretty consistently over 500. And they did have a stretch of 10 or more win seasons in 07, 08, 09, but not one of your traditional powerhouses. Still a program, going to the playoffs the year before that. I'm sure for Ferris State will be good competition this fall. The other bit of news here is from Michigan Tech. Michigan Tech had a captain and starting center who received the GLIAC Commissioner's Award, Hayden Hatula. I think I said it right. Hopefully I said it right. His last name is spelled Huttula. This is an award that's very prestigious in the GLIAC. All three of us having come from the GLIAC. I'm sure all of us are aware of this award, or if you're listening and you're familiar with the GLIAC, the Commissioner's Award is an award that's given each year to someone who excels in the classroom and in athletic competition. Easily one of the most prestigious awards you can receive from the GLIAC conference, on top of being named, a player of the year or a first team all GLIAC. I would say this is more prestigious than a first team all GLIAC, because the people who are getting this award are typically first team all GLIAC guys, or, some sort of all GLIAC individual.
Even all Americans potentially.
Or even, all American honorees. And because I don't remember how many athletes get this award from the conference at the end of the year. Total, because I think, do they give one in each sport?
It's one in the spring. Yeah, it's one in the fall, one in the spring.
Is it a male, female, fall, male, female, spring? I think.
Yeah.
So there's 4 for the year.
Yeah.
Out of how many hundreds of athletes total in the conference? Yeah. So a very prestigious award. Very cool. Congratulations to Hayden on that award. Brett's going to take us into some FBS news here.
All right. Moving on to the FBS, starting with the MAC. Central Michigan opening up the year against Oklahoma State. That game was supposed to be Saturday, September 3rd, and it since got moved to Thursday, September 1st.
Thursday.
Selfishly, I'm a little upset about that move because I was planning on going down to watch the Chippewas take on the Pokes. And
is that at Oklahoma State?
It is, yeah, in Stillwater.
You were going to go down there?
I was, but now that it's a Thursday, it's going to be difficult for my wife being a teacher. That's right when she gets back in school. And I wanted to have her come down with. Maybe we'll have to go see Penn State the following week.
We have golf league. We have golf league that Thursday, Brett. You can't do
that. It'll be done by then. I'm the commissioner. I'll make it happen. But yeah, so they're still playing the Pokes, but it's on a Thursday night, which they'll get on prime television, so that'll be neat. Some other news for the Chippewas: they lost their offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach, Kevin Barbe, who left to Appalachian State for the same position. Interesting move to me. Going to App State is quite lateral. Probably a better program, but as far as national prominence and profile, I'd say App State's a little bit smaller in Central, especially being an FCS school in the last decade. But interesting note, he actually started coaching, had a full assistant position at age 25. I read that today, and I thought that was pretty interesting. That's quite young to have an assistant coaching position. I think it was at Colorado State. Moving down south to Kalamazoo, home of the Western Michigan Broncos. They have a new defensive backs coach, Don Celsar. He was a GA for Minnesota. Spent some time in Montana at Montana State as a DB coach, and then a former GLIAC, now GMAC school, Lake Erie College, as the defensive passing game coordinator and secondaries coach. Some other news in Kalamazoo: they received a wide receiver transfer, Anderson Colby, formerly of Tennessee. Western is losing a lot of talent in the wide receiver room, especially with Sky Moore leaving. He got invited to the combine, like you mentioned last week, so they're looking to fulfill that leadership role in the wide receiver. Going east to Ypsilanti, not a whole lot going on, but don't forget the field is still gray. They have not changed the color yet. Moving a little bit west from Ypsilanti to Ann Arbor, the home of the Michigan Wolverines. This is the first time Harbaugh's actually come out and really shed light on coaching roles. So as we know, Sharon Moore and Matt Weiss were splitting offensive coordinator duties. It's been explained that Sharon's emphasis is primarily going to be at the O-line and the running game, but he's going to have input in the play calls. The passing is going to be dictated between Matt Weiss and Ronald Bellamy, who just moved from a secondaries coach over to wide receivers coach. That's the former West Bloomfield head coach. But Matt Weiss is going to have the play sheet and make the final call. And obviously Jim Harbaugh is going to participate in all aspects. Not a whole lot of news there, but interesting that Harbaugh is giving some details into how the program is being run. Also, Michigan started spring ball yesterday. It's hard to believe we're already in that time of year. We are at February 2nd today, and Michigan started spring ball February 21st. So that is great news for football fans in the state of Michigan. Not a whole lot of news in East Lansing this week. They're not starting spring ball yet. I'm sure they will start within the next couple of weeks. I don't know, Corey, did you want to talk about the Panthers here, or I can take it?
Yeah, our Michigan Panthers, who will be competing down in Birmingham, Alabama, had their draft tonight as all of the USFL. The Michigan Panthers were the number 1 draft pick, and they picked Shea Patterson from the University of Michigan as the first overall pick. It was kind of interesting what the USFL did. Each round of the draft was to a specific position group. So the first round was quarterbacks, and then so on and so forth. I saw that there was like a D-end, D-line group. There was a wide receivers group. So pretty interesting how they did that draft. I mean, you kind of have to do something similar to that when you're starting a brand new league. It can't just be a free-for-all. In some other news that I did see posted this week on social media, the XFL and the NFL will be in some sort of partnership when that gets back and rolling. What's your guys' take on that? Are they finally going to use the XFL what it should be used for? I mean, as like a developmental league for the NFL?
I just don't see Roger Goodell wanting to change what he has. I think we've talked about it previously in a different episode, but if I'm Roger Goodell and he's essentially running the most dominant professional network and probably the world, maybe European soccer could give a run for the money.
Yeah, it's true.
But why would he want to bring on an XFL? To him, there's no value. I mean, if I'm the CEO of the NFL, I don't want to bring on the XFL because all you're going to do is you're going to be dragging them along financially, and I don't see any benefit. So I think as a fan, it's cool, but from a business perspective, I don't think there's any merit to it. And
if the bottom line wasn't like just money and profits, then if you cared more about like the sport of football and, you know, like what's good for the sport of football and fandom, I feel like maybe they would bring in some other leagues. But you're right. I think it's a
business.
It is. It's a business. So I think they care more about the money than trying to develop some minor leagues. I, as a fan and as a football coach and someone who played football, man, I would love the opportunity to have some other professional football league in the United States that we could go to that's consistent, because we've had so many startup leagues that fall apart. I want a consistent league. Every other professional sport has multiple leagues. For baseball, you don't have to go to an MLB game. You can go to double, triple, single A games, right? Hockey has different leagues, and NBA, you can go to a G League game. I don't know.
Go ahead, Brett.
I was going to say, if it does happen, they would have to play on a Tuesday or Wednesday because every other day of the week is reserved for another level.
Give me some discounted hot dogs and beers on a Tuesday night, baby.
I would mess around with that.
Live podcast. Corey's getting serious. Corey almost flipped his computer table over there.
So just to call
what does Lugnuts do? What is it? The $1 beers and hot dogs or whatever?
Oh, Whitecaps do that too. We party at the Whitecaps. You walk up with a $20 bill, you're eating for a family of 8.
Corey walks up with all of his cats.
No, but I was going to say Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is supposed to be kind of the figurehead for the XFL. And then he also just announced the Super Bowl, which was probably the most corny thing I've ever seen in modern sports.
That was so weird.
Maybe that was the relationship. He goes, "Hey, Mr. Goodell, just let me announce the Super Bowl. And then I'll just say, hey, we're joining forces with the XFL."
Do you guys feel, though, like if they chose to partner with a league, like maybe not initially, it wouldn't be profitable initially, but don't you maybe over time, if they invested in it and they cared to invest in it, that it could be something that people, I feel like fans want football. Like if they have an opportunity to watch more football on TV or go to more football games, they would do it.
Make it 8 teams and do a travel league. Play in all these different cities, play in North Dakotas, play in the New Hampshires, play in the Virginias, play all over the freaking country at these small venues that you can pack out and just party.
Party like a rock.
Call me Roger Goodell. Call me.
Party.
My cats.
That's essentially what the US a smaller version of that's what the USFL is doing right now, right? For the games, they're going to all be in one location. And then the playoffs are going to be at the Hall of Fame Stadium, which we haven't talked about this yet, but I had messaged you guys and you guys never responded. I thought maybe this was going to be a opportunity for GLSF ball travel down to a playoff game this summer for
I'll be
USFL
there.
in Hall of Fame Stadium.
When
can do that.
were the playoffs?
June?
Yeah, June 17th or something like that.
Pretty
Yeah.
sure we're gonna be on a golf trip that day.
Oh shit.
All three of
Well,
us.
we'll get the dates exact.
We'll figure it out.
Might have to cancel the golf plans and shift it to Canton.
Let's not do that.
Before we get too off track here, anything else you guys
No.
want to add? Otherwise, we're going to get to our guest.
Yeah, real quick. Not a whole lot of news for the Detroit Lions this week, but it was interesting that the NFL tried to implement a bubble for the combine, and a bunch of players were planning to opt out because they didn't want to participate in the bubble, and the NFL just folded and said, "Fine, you can have it your way, no bubble."
Have it your way like Burger King.
Yeah, you can have it. Your
June
way.
25th, boys. We're good to go for the USFL.
I will be out of state.
Yeah, you'll be in Ohio at the USFL championship.
So Olivia, sorry, Olivia, our family trip is
Oh,
in
wait.
Ohio.
No. July 3rd. Sorry. Saturday, June 25th is the championship games, and then Sunday, July 3rd is the the world championship.
That
I believe I'll be in
unfortunately will
Arizona.
not. Yeah, that unfortunately will not work for me. And as much as I love football, I don't know if I want to spend the 4th of July in Canton, Ohio, at that stadium.
Well, we'll talk. We'll work this out outside of the podcast. All right, gentlemen, we're going to move into our guest here. We have a Mr. Casey Schukow, who we're going to have a great conversation with here about a variety of topics, including his time playing high school football at Saline, playing at Hillsdale College, where he was one of my teammates for a couple of years, and then we're going to talk about mental health. With college athletes, we're going to talk about football a little bit, but specifically with college athletes in general, high school athletes. He wrote an article. He was actually published in HPHR, which I will have the article linked in the description box for the audio and video versions of the episode. Definitely check this out. And I hope you enjoy the conversation. After the conversation, we will wrap this episode up with Brett's recommendation of the week. Enjoy. We're going to go ahead and segue into the second portion of the podcast here with our guest, Mr. Casey Schukow. Casey is a 2013 grad from Saline High School, where he was a 3-year starter at defensive line. Also played some offensive line there as well. 3-time all-area and all-league selection, as well as an all-state honorable mention selection his senior year. In addition to being a 4-year letter winner in wrestling, ended up going to Hillsdale, was my teammate for a few years, where he played in 37 games at defensive line, summing up 47 tackles, 4.5 for a loss, and getting his degree in biochemistry. And now he's working on completing his degree and his time at Michigan State's College of Osteopathic Medicine. And we're going to also talk with him about an article that he wrote and published in relation to athletes and their mental health and substance abuse. Casey, how you doing, man? Welcome on.
Man, living the dream over here, Vince. A heck of an introduction. No, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Vince, Brett, Corey, for having me. We're really excited to be a part of this.
Absolutely, man. We're always, again, we did this last week, talked about how we're always happy to have Hillsdale grads on. I think at this point, we're like 4.
We got to change this up. We
joked last week. We had CJ on last week, and now this is, I think, 4 or 5 Hillsdale guests. So, hey, man, they're reliable. As I said to CJ, we haven't missed out on Hillsdale guests yet.
They are reliable, and they seem to be doing bigger things than Grand Valley and Northwood folks.
Hey, Grand Valley and Northwood folks are too busy to talk. It's fine.
Go Lakers and Timberwolves. All right. So we're going to kick this off here. Casey spent, your high school career at Saline, obviously big Division I high school, a high school that's hung right around 1,700, 1,800 kids. We talked about high school growth last week with CJ, how Dearborn's been a community that's grown. Saline seems to be a community that's been pretty consistent in terms of its, enrollment at the high school. But one thing that is noteworthy, your time there, you had a senior season where you guys went 10-2. I believe I looked it up today, was your 3rd regional finals appearance in school history, but your first 10-win season. Since then, Saline has had 3 11-win seasons, a state championship in addition to that. And they actually went 9-0 last year as well. So they've had quite a bit of success. Haven't missed the playoffs since since that senior season that you had there. What was your time like playing at Saline? And do you think your time there or your senior class maybe started something to contribute to this prolonged success of the last decade?
Yeah, absolutely. No, that was the senior year back at Saline. That was a wild run, man. It was a time of my life. We went through this kind of big coaching staff change, and kind of those years prior to we weren't looking so hot. I think we had a 3-6 record, or it was like a 4-5 record, but we were kind of like really just low middle tier, and had some coaching changes. Joe Palka kind of came in from Toledo. And Coach Joe, I think he really set the bar and the expectations high, and I think he really did an excellent job. I think getting a really a nice group, a group of coaches and dudes and people looking to change the culture, to bring our winning culture to Saline. I think at one point I saw a nice winning culture that just had somehow in the past couple of years prior kind of just got lost in the weeds. It was definitely, some guys came and gone, players especially, guys learning how to buy in, and those who didn't buy in, they didn't stick around. And that's, I think that attitude though of, hey, we're going to be together. We're going to be a unit. We're going to learn how to win and develop a winning culture. It was a turnaround, man. We had fun, you kept it really simple. Practices were very fast paced. Honestly, I felt it prepared me for Hillsdale amazingly, because he runs a college. It's a college system, and I think that's something that we see more and more of. Pro systems making their way down to college systems making their way down to high school, so on and so forth. Yeah, it really is. But man, there was clear communication. I mean, we got each other's case. We held each other accountable, and man, let me tell you, it was, man, those Friday night lights, man, it was real, man. It was definitely real, but it was so much fun. And that last game when we played Cass Tech, I'll never forget this. I think that was the regional final game that we lost, and that's back when they had Mike Weber, who
you guys only lost by a touchdown too. Good game.
We fumbled the ball on our 5-yard line, and they put it in, with 5 or 6 minutes left to go. It's something crazy like that. And but I remember at Saline, we didn't have a single Division I, scholarship athlete. I think we had 2 Division II athletes at the time, maybe a Division III and MIAA. That was about it. I think they had 16 Division I players on that team between both. And that team won the state championship.
I mean, Mike Weber was a dog regardless. I mean, he alone makes a high school team.
Oh my God. I mean, was he Mr. Michigan, right? I think he was Mr. Michigan at some point. But I know he had a heck of a career down at Ohio State. And but man, we were the motley crew of teams. Let me tell you. But you know what? Hey, we were together. We played together. You play hard, and that's what it's about. Is that togetherness? It's that grit. It's it's all that.
What year did you say that? So the coach then you had that senior. What year did you say he came in?
He came in. That was his first year.
Your senior year?
That my senior year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you feel like when he came in that he had the pieces there for success, or did he just come in and change things so radically and was fortunate to have buy-in from the guys that you had there that it just worked? I know from experience at Grand Ledge, where I coach right now, in my time there, we had a coaching change and there was some resistance to the new coaching staff, and unfortunately things did not go well. So I'm wondering if you felt like you had the pieces there for him already, or he was just that good of a coach coming in, we're good to go.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was a combination. of the both. I think we had guys there who were ready to win. We had some solid athletes there. I mean, we didn't have a Division I athlete, but you don't have to be a Division I athlete to be a good athlete. You don't have to be this 5-star talents to player. I firmly believe to be a good football player, to be a good guy, a good whatever you want, you want to call it. I think so much of it is the heart. It is the leadership. It is being able to be accountable and to be reliable and say, hey, when a play has to be made, somebody's got to make that play. you know, I think we had, I know we had guys on that team who they were ready to take that step. Me, personally, I definitely took that personal, that step. I wanted to put that weight on my shoulders because I wanted, to leave my personal career and the guys that I got to know and and love and work so hard with and fight against with, to finally have that winning culture. Because Saline that was my hometown, and anyone who's played hometown football, you have that sense of passion. You have that sense of, wanting to fight for your ground, and defend the land, if so to speak.
Yep.
But I think what Coach Joe really did a great job of was absolutely getting guys to buy in. And I think seeing seeing results and seeing it come together, I don't think people didn't question that,
Has he been the same? It's been the same coach ever since too. He's the coach who's still there.
Yep. Yeah, he's still there, man. He is still there.
It's crazy when you impressive. When these coaches can come in and if they have any experience. I know my biggest culture shock when I went to Northwood was how much different and how much more efficient practice was. And that was something that Vince and I and some of the other guys that came back out of college to coach at Grand Ledge, it was, hey, we got to make this program more efficient. Like we got to bring these tools that we learned in college and implement them at the high school level, things such as periods, things such as how we watch film, things such as the drills we run. And I know it didn't quite work.
Repetition of individual.
And it didn't quite work our first couple years coaching, but then when Coach Bry came in, he was the same way. And it was like, if you can bring a coach in like that came into Saline and says, hey, this is how we're going to run things. It's going to be efficient and we're going to do the same things every day. And you can skew the drills eventually, but it's amazing how much the kids react because they're not bored because it's something new every day and it's fast paced.
Exactly. No, that level of organization and efficiency, no, that cannot be understated for sure. And you see even in the medical school and the residency level, where I'm about to take my next steps, you can tell programs where they have their stuff together. You kind of go through the clinic, you can go through the atmosphere, and you can see what programs they are well organized. You know where you're going to be at. You know who your attending is. For example. But it's so many walks of life, that organization, that efficiency, and having that, I think that attention to detail, man, it definitely, I completely agree with that. It's so vital. I think especially in any organizational success and high school football.
High school kids who are like squirrels. They're like, ah!
No, wait, oh my God, literally. I mean, I was right up there, man. We're knuckleheads, man.
What was it like on that senior season? You guys had kind of the interesting distinction of you only had one regular season loss to Pioneer by a point, who also had a loss that season. So you guys technically shared the conference title, but then you got another shot at them and pounded them in the district championship. What was I have been around some games. We've had this happen at Grand Ledge. We have I don't know if Ann Arbor Pioneers your rival, but Grand Ledge, our rival is Holt, who is the only other Division I Lansing area school. And we have had this happen, I think, 4 times now where we've played in the regular season and met in the playoff. And the team who won the regular season has never been the team who won in the playoff. It's always a split. So what was that like your senior year, getting to live that firsthand? I know that's always an interesting dynamic to have to play a team twice and try to beat them twice.
Yeah, there's not many things in this world that I really just don't like or just dislike or I hate's a strong word. But there was something about that loss to Pioneer that like what Holt is to y'all, it's Pioneer. That's what Pioneer is to us.
They are your rival.
Rival? Yeah. I'm pretty sure that the rivalry still holds true. Now I know there's still other schools like Bedford, for example. I think that's definitely taken a big rivalry as well. But when I was playing at Pioneer, was definitely I just couldn't stand them. I think it makes a great competition though, because man, you give it your all. And those losses, that loss had a little extra oomph next to it because we played such a tremendous game. Defensively, was it 7-6? I think it was.
Yeah, it said 7-6. You guys lost by a point and only gave up a touchdown.
That's terrible.
That's frustrating.
I tell you what, man, as someone who prides himself in defense, who played only defense his senior year, that just to lose that game by that 1 point. But
I tell my kids, I'm the defensive coordinator at Grand Ledge, and I tell my kids all the time, and you hold a team to under 20 points under 20 points.
I have the
should
same
beat
theory
them.
as Vince
Should
every
beat them.
time, 100%.
If you are losing to a team that you held them to less than 20 points, to me, your offense is just not getting it done. Because in high school football, teams are going to score. I mean, it's very rare to shut a team out, especially at the Division I level. I mean, I'm sure you know, all of us played Division I football in high school. I mean, at the Division I level, it's just it's not often that you shut teams out. Usually Division I, 2, and 3 teams, the worst ones. I mean, I don't want to disparage any Lansing area teams, but there's some teams in the Lansing area that are just not very good, or, in our time there, we're not very good. And even sometimes, we'd have our backups in late in the game and they would find a way to score, because in high school, kids make mistakes.
Always.
So to hold a team to 7 points and lose, man, that's got to be frustrating. But how sweet that must have been then to turn around and beat him for the district championship.
Dude, I'll never forget, man. There was one play late in the fourth quarter where we turned them over on fourth. I was on downs, and Pioneer was basically, it was like, if we turned them over on downs, it was like 6 minutes left to go. We're gonna punch it in again. It's gonna be like the dagger, but we had to turn them over. And had a big stop in the backfield. I remember ripping my helmet off on the field and just running towards the end of the side. And then with my helmet off, running like a psycho man to the sideline. And then the following Monday, we had to do like wind sprints or rolls or something, because obviously you can't take your helmet off after the parade.
Did you get a penalty? It's a 15-yarder now.
Oh, no, man. Oof. Lucky I didn't get no penalty. Oh, did we get a penalty? I might have actually got a penalty.
Were you coming off the field, or were you still in the game?
The play was over, whistle was blown, and we were just like, I was hauling tail, to the sideline. So I was coming off the field.
Yeah, what is the rule with that? I guess
you can't take your helmet off on the field.
You can't take it off until you're on the sideline.
Yeah, I think technically it is a penalty.
Oof.
Now it is. I mean,
I don't know about in 2012, but I know now I think they would call it.
Thanks to you, Casey, it's now a penalty.
It's just the Schukow rule. Don't take your helmet off.
The Schukow penalty is being enforced on the defense.
Oh my God. But it was worth every roll though. That was a fun game. Yeah.
Well, Corey and Brett, anything else you guys want to add here with Saline? Otherwise, we're going to move on to our next topic.
Nope.
No, I think summed it up.
So Casey Schukow, my former teammate at Hillsdale College, you signed your letter of intent to play football at Hillsdale, played defensive line there. Just like myself, you took advantage of a redshirt year, and I know you ended up playing for 5 seasons. Why Hillsdale? Why'd you end up choosing Hillsdale and going to the smart guy football of the GLIAC? As Corey likes to joke, average white guy football.
Oh, come on, Corey.
It's pretty average and it's pretty white.
Hey, I always brag about how he led the nation in fewest penalties and fewest penalty yards per game.
That's a heck of a statistic. I tell you what.
It's because you had doctors on your team.
That's true. I think I know there's some of my classmates. I know like Nelly, Spencer Niels. I know
I could probably name 10 guys that we play with that are doctors.
Yeah,
there's only been 10 guys in the history of Northwood football to ever be doctors. Maybe even less.
So yeah, Casey, what ended up? Did you have family that went? I know a lot of guys that we played with had family. We had CJ on last week, and his mom and dad met at Hillsdale. His dad was on the national championship team. His brother was there already. Did you have any familial connections, or was it just through the recruiting process that ended up being the place for you?
Yeah, absolutely. No, it was definitely. I think the recruiting process was definitely kind of how it all worked out. Going into my senior year, again, I think like many athletes, I was one of those complete 0-star athletes. Didn't really have a lot. Didn't really have a lot. No, in terms of like that many colleges like looking after me. I had some Division III schools. But I tell myself I at least Division II. I want to play Division II football. I know I was a shorter guy as a defensive lineman. I know I wasn't as fast of a guy as a defensive lineman, but I had something to prove. It was a dream of mine to play college football, at least at the Division II level. And kind of stuck it out. And after that Cass Tech game, Coach Keith Otterbein, it was either gave me a call or it was something that we had gotten in touch like literally the weekend after or like the week after.
It was Keith himself?
Yeah, Keith.
Coach Otterbein himself?
Coach Keith came down and I was like, all right. Pleasure to meet you, Coach. Talk to me about Hillsdale. And mind you, I had never heard of Hillsdale in my life.
I tell these guys my senior year when I got recruited by Hillsdale, I didn't know what I was like. Hillsdale, where the hell is that? Is that Michigan?
Yeah, I mean, literally, it's you know, where I'm from in Saline, you go down US 12 and you take it to straight west for, a solid hour, and you hit cornfield,
Middle of nowhere.
and it's Tyler. Remember Jinxie, Tyler Jinxie? He always tell it this way. I loved it. Okay, it's like cornfield, then it's Hillsdale, then cornfield. But when on the visit though, really loved the atmosphere. I loved the small town feel of it. I ended up getting a little bit of scholarship money, and that's something that was very important. My family didn't have a lot of money, but we were able to pull together everything that we could. And I knew, this was the opportunity. This was the place for me. It was really my one shot. At least at D2, didn't get other, D2 offers, didn't really get other Division I offers. So you know what? I'm just gonna make the most, and they want me. So hey, I want you. And I feel I was able to definitely make the most of the opportunity and hopefully give back to, I know it's, some might say middle of the run, white boy football, but
white guy, not boy.
White guy, excuse me.
Or he calls it average white guy football.
Average white guy football. But hey, I got to live out my dream, and I'm thankful every day for it.
Yeah,
go ahead. I just hated losing to fucking Hillsdale. I don't know what it was. Just because, like, the other teams, you'd be like, okay,
we
like,
won a lot, and we won a lot too.
I know, you beat me every time. But it was just like, we're better than you, and you just beat us, and I don't get it. Like, it just drove me nuts. I don't know what it was.
It's those penalty yards, Corey. Come on, add up.
Casey wasn't there.
He wasn't there for that game.
Casey wasn't there for that game. My true freshman year, the year in 2011, Northwood played at Hillsdale. And I think it was
four. Down four with like a minute to go.
It was one of the last games of the year, though. Too. It was late in the year.
It was the last game.
Was it the last game?
Yeah.
And for Hillsdale, we won the conference championship that year. We won the GLIAC. It was the last time we won the GLIAC title because they changed conferences, 6 years later or whatever. But Northwood was in the game. Northwood wasn't. I don't think they were even that good that year. What did you guys finish?
We probably had 4 wins,
4 or 5 wins. Yeah,
we had like 4 wins every year.
But Northwood was in the game, and they had no business being in the game because that Hillsdale team was actually really, really good. I mean, we had 4 or 5 guys who got like invited to NFL camps off that team. A couple guys who played on practice squads preseason, whatever. And there was a play late in the game where
we were driving.
Where Northwood had the ball.
We were down 4 driving.
Close to midfield.
And I was on the sideline. I played guard, so I was on the Hillsdale sideline when this happened. So I maybe remember it because I wasn't playing. I was redshirted that year. It was my true freshman year. So I remember from the sideline. Maybe you remember it better, Corey. But Northwood player, I don't think he was hurt, but he was on the ground like he was hurt because I think Northwood was out of timeouts, if I remember correctly, and there was very little time left. So he was laying there on the field. Hillsdale's whole home side started booing. And this guy gets up, like jumps to his feet, and double middle fingers our crowd. And 15-yard penalties come flying in, and the whole home side starts clapping and cheering. Ashton Gulbis.
I'll never forget it. It was hilarious.
It was my first year starting, and we're at Hillsdale. It was freezing. Was that the game where it like snowed and rained and sunny? But it was like sunny, November. And then it was weird. And we were driving, and they threw like a quick out to him, and I'll never forget because I was pass blocking. And
there's a wide receiver, I think.
Yeah, and I can't remember if he like almost caught it, if it was something, but he was laying on the sideline. I remember jogging to the sideline for some that specific sideline, and then he jumped up. So I turned around and was running back to the huddle, and then everybody started booing. And then I just remember we getting a 15-yard penalty, and I was like, "What just happened?" And they're like, "He just flipped off the crowd."
Double middle finger, legit went like this to the crowd, and was like jogging backward off the field, double bird to the whole Hillsdale crowd.
15-yard penalty. I think we turned the ball over. You guys scored again, and it ended up being like a 12-point loss, but it was.
Gotta love D2 football.
It was unbelievable.
Too bad that wasn't on ESPN. Maybe would have made the bottom 10 plays or whatever.
You can't write that. That's that's funny.
That's D2 football for you.
That's right.
All right. Casey, Brett, Corey, anything else we want to talk about here about Hillsdale? Otherwise, we're going to move on a little bit here.
No, I'm good.
All right. Casey, you, after graduating from Hillsdale with a degree in biochem, have been spending your time at the Michigan State School of osteopathic medicine. I can't talk. Why did you decide to go into this field? Or was this something that you always knew you were going to do when you're at Hillsdale? You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I think, medical school and medicine, wasn't always really kind of like my first choice in terms of like things I really kind of wanted to do after college. I think like a lot of guys who go into football, who go into D2, D1, whatever the case. I always had these aspirations of really wanting to play in the NFL, right? I got a chance to train with a bunch of NFL guys. When I was going through my time in Saline, got to pay for and take all these classes and make these awesome relationships and work my tail off hard. And just to kind of see what they can do is like that's where I aspired to be, and worked tirelessly to try get to that point. But injuries accumulated, realities kind of sat in. There comes a point where dream and reality, dream and goal, however you want to balance it and work it, there comes a point where you have to kind of look yourself in the mirror and say, okay, what is going to be the most realistic next step for me and for my life? And that's something that I started really coming to terms with, I think, as I kind of entered my junior year, I guess my redshirt junior year of Hillsdale.
Yep.
After having MCL injuries, after just doing a bunch of stuff, injury wise, that just kind of just set me back, as it does for a lot of athletes. So I kind of looked into options, ideas. Now I was going biochemistry. I love science. I kind of told myself I couldn't just be in a lab 24/7. It's just not who I am. I love working with people, getting to know people. The whole mentorship, leadership, fostering relationships. That's something that still meant a lot to me. It means a lot to me, and it's something that, looking back, why I love and appreciate football so much is you get all of that all the time.
Yeah.
But getting a chance to shadow a few docs, talk with a few docs that I had come to know through family, friends, family connections. I think the decision was definitely there to go for medicine routes, and it just so happened that MSU kind of like Hillsdale, that was my one choice, and but hey, I always tell myself, and I've always been told, hey, you only need one. You need one to buy in, and they bought into me. I bought into MSU and gosh, almost 4 years later, I'll be walking across the stage and be the first medical doctor in my family. So I'm very, awesome. Very, 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 very proud, thankful for all the support. And honestly, it's definitely a lot of hard work, but I wouldn't change it for the world. And if I had to do it over again, I probably would do it over again. Parts of it kind of stink.
Hindsight's 20/20, right?
Hey, there's pros and cons everywhere.
Yeah.
There really in nature there are pros and cons that sometimes you think about, sometimes you don't always think about. But the big picture, it's how you look at yourself in the mirror at the end of the day, and are you doing something that brings you enjoyment, brings you fulfillment, and that's something that I think I've been able to finally reach that. So we're almost there.
If you were playing currently, would you take advantage of your COVID year? Would you have grad transferred to MSU and taken your last year at MSU?
That's honestly a wonderful question. And
Coach Al Tucker loves the transfers.
Yeah. Do you think about that, though? We talk about this a lot. The grad transfer thing's crazy right now because of the 6 year of eligibility or 5th year, whatever, of COVID.
And again, I thought that is a wonderful thought. And if the opportunity was there, I absolutely do it. Hey, if I know at the end of this year, if this is still just going to be it, going from a Division II to Division I, man, why not?
That's what I don't know if you guys, before I walked away before we started recording for a little bit, I don't know if you chatted with Brett. Brett's brother Cole, he just graduated from Hillsdale. Cole Johnson was a 4-year starter on the offensive line. He 2-time academic All-American. Yeah. He just grad transferred to Central Michigan.
I was about to say, you look a lot like Cole. Okay, I see the connection now. But that's awesome, though.
The better looking version.
Exactly.
The best looking Johnson.
Yeah. Smallest, but the best looking.
Yeah, there's another brother who played at Yale too. There's
Small in stature, but biggest in the pants. Come on,
Exactly.
Brad.
Hey, that's right.
There's
Talking
Corey.
zippers over here.
There's Corey making our podcast NC-17.
Hey! I can't swear anymore because Vince's father-in-law was talking crap. So now
You already dropped the F-bomb earlier, so
You said the F word earlier.
Oh man!
It's so ingrained in your system, you don't even think about it.
They say people who swear are smarter, so just so
They
everybody
do. There
knows.
have been studies about that. And I swear a lot, so I got to be pretty smart, right?
There you go.
All right.
That's awesome, though, Brett. Congrats to Cole, though. Tom, congrats.
yeah, thanks. I'll let him know. But not to get too sidetracked from the previous question. So you said you would go to Michigan State and grad transfer if you had the opportunity.
Yeah. I think it's one absolutely. Like I said, it's I'm kind of looking back, especially with like college football or just like college sports in general. I think I'm such a firm believer now as I'm a couple of years removed from it, and think about like when I have kids down the road and what do I want to tell my kids? I was like, if you have an opportunity to play at a bigger stage or to play at a next level, take that next step, no matter how hard or challenging it may be. If you have the opportunity, by God, take it. As long as the opportunity, it feels right at the end of the day for you, and it's what you want to do as an individual, man, why not? Why not?
You only can play for so long.
Yeah,
exactly, man.
It's done.
Exactly, and that's something that I think for me, my own personal struggles when I was kind of walking away from the reality that football is over, Hillsdale's done, that's it for me. NFL bye-bye, anything else bye-bye. I wish I had these conversations with myself, or I had these conversations with somebody else ahead of time, just to be acceptance of, hey, it's going to be done at some points. Take advantage of the opportunities when you have them, but know that they're not always going to be there, and that's okay. Just make sure you grab onto them when you have them, and just take full advantage.
Exactly. I got to ask you. You kind of alluded to the fact of kind of walking away from football. So now that you've been a student for 4 years without football, how was that first year of being a student without football? Did you find it? I mean, obviously you're in medical school, so it's a little bit different than your undergrad. Probably a little bit, although Hillsdale was very demanding for an undergrad, so it might be pretty close in comparison. But I guess, how did you adjust? And do you think it's harder to be just a student only than it was to be a student with football?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it was for me, myself personally, it was one of the most difficult years of my life, just because at that point this was the first year that Casey was no longer football player. My identity was no longer football player. That's gone. I think that what happens with so many guys that play through high school, play through college, right? At
Which
some point,
I do want to dive into that too, because that's our next thing. I really want to dive into that.
Yeah, I would definitely dive into it more.
Yeah.
But it was definitely a challenging year. It was a challenging year to learning to really cope with. I'm no longer an athlete. That's not, I'm no longer a football player, and the transition ultimately ended up being a very good transition. Ended up able to get a lot of help. And we can talk more about when we actually talk about the article and kind of like why I decided to piece it all together. But in terms of like demands and whatnot, medical school to me comparatively, it was hard, but it wasn't as hard. I feel like medical school is one of those things where it's challenging, it's demanding, but I think for everyone, you have a challenge in your life, you have a demand in your life, you have something that you go through prior to that. If you learn from those experiences, you can tell yourself, hey, you can do it, right? When another challenge comes along. I think those who don't, go through, for example, medical school, who don't succeed or don't make it through, there's probably something in there where it's like, what challenges have you faced? Have you learned from those challenges? Have you learned from those opportunities? Have you been able to kind of translate things? And a lot of people really struggle with that. And that's a real thing, But
it's not only the strong will survive mentality. I mean, iron sharpens iron.
Yeah. I mean, mental challenge is very hard from like a exhaustion standpoint, but physical challenge is also like, if you can fight to the point where you're like, I just can't do this anymore. Like my body, like I'm just exhausted. It's a whole different fight than like mental fight.
Exactly. Like gosh, I was on this interview with well-known medicine social media guy named Kevin MD, and we were kind of talking about that. What's our article from him and talking about medical school is hard, but medical school has never the day after the next day I haven't been able to get off the toilet because I'm so sore I can't move. But to your point though, that's so true. Like there is something about just the extra, it's not just the mind, but it's the body, it's the spirit, that you freaking challenge yourself every day when you're going through football training, when you go through practice, when you go through a season. And on top of that, when you're in school, you still got all your schoolwork still.
Yeah.
So it's I guess hindsight 2020 again. I think it's something up really well for medical school because you kind of eliminated those, the whole, I can't get off the toilet type, if so to speak, in terms of physical exhaustion. But still some days that you're still very physically tired because you're still going through a lot and still, whether it be clinic hours or whatever, it's still some very physically demanding portions of medicine. But it's all, I think, just relative. I think difficulty, it's a relative thing. It's how we put it into perspective,
I think it's one of those things too, you're in high school and everyone tells you, like football teaches you things that other sports don't. They teach you life lessons.
Yep.
And one of those life lessons is how you deal with adversity. There's times when you are so mentally and physically tired, you don't want to do anything, but you have to. And it teaches you how to battle in different ways, but you understand what it takes to achieve something. And I think that's essentially what you were saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
You all, I was just going to chime in off what Brett said. You guys will probably all agree with me. That like first year or two, going to practice every day is so mentally like you're just sitting there like, I do not want to go to practice. Like it's going to be hard. It's going to hurt. It's going to suck. It's going to be long. It's going to be cold. Like, and I just remember going into the locker room and I would always go an hour early or as soon as I could out of class. And I would just sit there and just try to digest like as much as I could to calm myself down before going to practice. Like never mind the physical bullshit. Like mentally, I was just like, I do not want to do this right now.
And not only that, but you're 18 years old and you're in this locker room and there's grown men walking around there just jacked.
22,
like,
23, 24.
I just remember in the Grand Valley locker room my freshman year, like I hadn't even started shaving yet. And there's guys with like full beards. They got like pictures of their kids in their lockers. And it's like, oh my God.
That might be an exclusively Grand Valley thing.
But
intimidating.
But to your point, but and God, but no, Ben Jones, rest his soul, man. To your points, the whole like I remember when my first time I stepped foot in the Hillsdale, again, I thought I was a bigger guy, I had a little bit of facial hair, whatever. I just look at Ben Jones, and Ben Jones, you see Ben, he had this full-on dad stash. He's got his Hawaiian shirt unbuttoned all the way down. He's got chest hair and belly hair and everything. This looks like this gorilla among men. I was like, this is like a coach or something? Who is this guy? And it's like, nah, he's your teammate. I was like, what? But and then Ben, rest in peace, brother. But but that type of transition, man, it's daunting sometimes.
Well, I'm actually glad you brought up Ben Jones because he was just on my mind a second ago with what Corey was talking about. We ironically we had CJ on last week to talk about the Get To Foundation, and we brought Ben up. But I brought up last week how practice. I got to play with Ben for 2 or 3 seasons. I got to play with Ben for 3 seasons because your true freshman year, I think, was his 2013 was his last year there.
That was his last year, yeah.
Those 3 seasons that I got to play with Ben, one of my favorite parts about practice, and again, I said this last week, is I would come to practice kind of like what Corey just said. Those not even just my freshman year. Like my freshman year was really hard. I think all of us could agree.
First
freshman
2-3 years,
yeah.
But especially freshman year of college football, man, it is tough. You don't have your boys from high school anymore. Camp is a whole new story. the grind of the week with college schedule and the pressure of college classes on top of the demand college football. The demand for college football or any college sport is so much bigger than high school sports. And then you come to practice, middle of the season, you're coming to practice, you're tired, you got all this stuff on your mind in terms of what you got to do for, work that night, but you got to be back up for an 8 a.m. class or whatever, or lifting. We had 6 a.m. lifting on Wednesdays at Hillsdale before we had 8 a.m. classes. Ben Jones, every practice, to that guy's credit, man, the Get To Foundation is named after this. He would run out of the tunnel. He was usually one of the last guys out, and I think he did it on purpose. He would be one of the last guys out and would be yelling, "Get to, get to." He would just scream that. And, a lot of younger guys, I think, would be like, what the fuck is he talking about? And but what he was saying is, and CJ talked about last week, is you get to play college football, right? You don't have to. No one has to play it. It's an opportunity, right? It's a privilege. There's a lot of people who don't play college sports. I mean, the percentage of people who go from high school to college sports is so small. So I love that reminder, because I remember I'd be coming out of the tunnel like, God, dude, this is gonna stink. And then I hear Ben yelling that, I'm like, you know what? He's right. Like, I could be anywhere in the world right now, but I get to play college football. So I'm glad you brought Ben up, because I just thought that was worth mentioning. I always love that mantra of his, and I think it's always worth talking about. Again,
of course,
rest in peace, Ben. That mantra, got me through a lot of practices. That's for sure. You guys have anything else you want to hear? We want to talk about college or with Hillsdale before we get into Casey's article?
No,
I think we're ready for the article. Let's do it.
Yeah, I feel like we're kind of at a good point here, kind of naturally transitioning into it with some of the conversations we're having here with mental health and college athletes already. So Casey has a very awesome distinction of being published. Casey had an article published this past year, and I want to make sure I get the date correct. Casey, I'm not seeing it on the article. When did you get this article published?
Oh gosh, it was, I had the exact dates. It was sometimes within the past. It was last fall. It was, I want to say, it's like maybe November. It was October, November, something like that.
I was going to say, because I was looking at your citation here. On the citation just says 2021. I didn't see the specific month.
Yeah, but it was last fall. That was last fall.
So Casey had an article published in HPHP, or excuse me, HPHR is the title or the name of the online academic journal. Formerly, if you go to their about section, they're formerly known as Harvard Public Review. They're described as an independent academic referred journal that's published by the Boston Congress of Public Health. Casey's article that was published last year is titled "Addiction, Substance Use, and Pressure Among Adolescent through Collegiate Athletes. Why we need to keep talking." I will share this article. The link for it will be shared in the description of the video version of this podcast, in addition to the audio version. So if you're interested in reading this article, we're going to be referring to it for the rest of the podcast here. Definitely check it out. It's an awesome read. I've had a chance to read through it at least 3 times now. When Casey, you first reached out and sent it to me, I read it pretty quickly. As soon as I got my kids to bed that night, I read the article. And I've had a chance to read a couple times since in preparation for the podcast. Casey, I'll have you introduce this. Would you like to talk about how this came to be, why you wrote an article like this, how it ended up being published, and your passion for this topic?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So the major motivation, I think, for this article was really stemming from the transition the tough transition I faced. Kind of going from Hillsdale to, as Brad had mentioned earlier, from life as athletes, student athletes, to no longer life as athletes. And it took a really severe mental toll on me. It was one of those where I had gone through this, I was very down, very, lots of sorrow, lots of just kind of remorse, kind of wishing I was back. I'll never forget when that August after, which would have been my first August without any football camp. And I thought I was betraying guys. I remember I broke down in my mom and dad's kitchen floor one day. I think it was the morning before what would have been like the summer, the summer prep game for Hillsdale before, the first week of the season. And I just knew something wasn't right. There was something I wasn't letting go of. There's something I wasn't being able to cope with or comprehend with. And finally was able to, I think, break down my own barriers that I put up, myself, against everyone else, against family, friends, you name it. And got a chance to seek counsel at MSU and learn how to talk about kind of my experiences with football and kind of about the feelings of sad sorrow that I was having with walking away from the game. And I think learning how to transition and how to really embrace life, in medical school and just life in general. That's something that me as a Division II athlete was going through. And I always kind of thought to myself, if I'm going through this, how many other people are really going through this? And I think especially within the past couple of years, in the past year, especially with COVID, we see more and more about, I think, the term like mental health, for example, that I feel like is becoming less of a taboo term and something that's becoming more, I think, accepted in terms of, hey, people struggle through real stuff. Athletes especially struggle through very, 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 very real, deep emotions, especially ones drawn with something that they are passionate in, that you put your heart in, and then all of a sudden it's gone, and just to turn, just to say, wake up the next day, okay, I'm okay, it's gone. That's not the reality. I think for a lot of people, that wasn't my reality. But a couple of years later, I'm happy as I can be. I'm fully embraced it. I love football. I look back at football of nothing but positive light, amidst all positive and negative things that had happened with my own football career, as happens with any football career. But I think the stories that we tell ourselves and the timeline, not the timeline, but kind of how we tell ourselves, it's something to be very mindful of. And something I think to be very open and talk about. So the HPHR journal, they were looking for, in a lot of journals, especially in academia, they'll do like call for submissions, and their call for submission was addiction and substance use. So, something, unfortunately for me, I didn't struggle with addiction problems. I didn't really have substance, abuse or abuse problems, but I know a lot of guys do as well, up and above the whole mental health struggles that a lot of athletes face. So this was, I felt, an opportunity for me to finally, I think, come full circle and get a chance to not only share about my experiences, but to, I think, continue this narrative of let's continue to talk about the issues of addiction, substance use, substance abuse, pressure among athletes, mental health struggles that we see not just in your NFL athletes, not just in your NBA, MLB, women's professional soccer, whatever, but you're seeing in kids now 8 years old, 9 years old, 10 years old, and especially in your high school athletes, and especially in your college athletes, regardless of Division 1, 2, 3, and whatever. Because again, passion's passion at the end of the day, and putting your heart into something. It doesn't matter if you're a Division 1 level athlete or a Division 3 level athlete. I think those emotions can be very, very similar, and the pressures and consequences of different, trials and tribulations that we face. I think there's a connection that we all ultimately share in some way, shape, or form.
How did you so when you said they put out a call, was this a situation where you had to, I don't know what the correct terminology, did you just simply, was it just as you decide, I'm going to write this article, it's an article or it's an idea I've had in my mind, something to write about already, and then you just had to submit it? Was it that simple, or was there more of a process to it, or how did the this article that you had published, what was that process like?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, you kind of hit the nail on the head. That was pretty much the process. A lot of articles, they were kind of you go on like a website, you go on like their website or whatever, or if you type in like call for submissions, articles like say on their website, they were looking for articles talking about this topic, and basically that's what I saw. I saw that they were looking for articles on this topic, and I felt to myself, you know what? I think this is an opportunity for me to actually get all these thoughts and feelings and I think narrative that I think I've had kind of started up over the past couple of years, but didn't really have, I think, the right or the right outlets to really kind of convey it. So it was like, again, it's like one of those where you have an opportunity, just go for it, and kind of put together a rough draft, had some people look at it, had my fiance look at it, had her, and she kind of, cut it down because it fit original rough draft, like any rough draft in any situation, and it wasn't the best. I wasn't saying, I think, how I wanted to say and what I wanted to say, to hopefully try to make the biggest impact that I could with this piece. But through a couple of drafts, I was able to finally submit it. It was a long review process, which I'm looking back, I'm thankful it was, because I know they did a very thorough job and made a couple, I think, key edits in terms of like things to update and adding appropriate statistics. But we call it the peer review process.
Yep.
Everything got sent out, and I'm very, very, very proud, thankful for everyone's help in this paper.
Do you feel that the process for you was therapeutic?
Very, very therapeutic. If you would have asked me, Casey, you see yourself being an author 10 years ago, I would tell you no. I hated writing. I hated reading.
Hey man, you should be proud of yourself. That's really cool. That's a really awesome thing to have, especially in a reputable, academic journal, published journal website like that. Like, that's awesome. Good for you, man.
No, thank you.
And I told the guys earlier before we got on with you, I just really enjoyed reading how you wrote it, because sometimes when you read items like this, it's a little overwhelming. There's a lot of just like, I don't know. Everybody tries to use words that are so large and write phrases that are so like intellectual that you're reading and you're like, I really can't follow like what they're actually trying to say, because you're trying to just like dissect everything that's being said. But you wrote it in a way that was actually relatable and like made sense, and that like somebody's mom or dad or counselor or somebody that could actually read this and relay this to kids, or give this article to like young kids or high school level kids that could read your article and actually understand like, hey, I do feel this way, and like, hey, I need to get help or resolve an issue or anything like that.
Yeah, you didn't fill it full of like academic jargon or anything like that.
Yeah.
It's well written, but it has a personal touch to it, which I think it's funny that you said you don't like to write or never would have seen yourself as a writer or an author. But I feel like some people who have some of the best articles or short stories or anything like that are those types of people, because it's easily digestible or personal or relatable, to someone who's reading it. And I felt like it was, obviously there's portions where you can't get around, your citations or, some of the, the other works that you're quoting and presenting, some of the academic things in that regard, you can't get around that. But for the main points of your article and your main ideas, the thread throughout is something that I feel like anyone could read and be like, man, this is me, or this is relatable, or I know someone like this.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Vince, thank you so much for the feedback. No, it means a lot to me. I'm glad it was very well received. And that's something that I was very intentional with when trying to write this thing. I want to be able to tell my story, and because I know it's a story that's shared with a lot of people, in bits and pieces, ways, shapes, and forms. And to me, that's so important, and I'm very happy you were able to take away with it as you were, and that was I feel like a nice read. Thank you for the feedback, honestly. But yeah, I've definitely found, and to your point, Vince, with the whole therapeutic thing, it was very therapeutic for me. It's something I think now that I've kind of gotten into medicine, and I think I'm starting to find a little bit of my own niche with this whole like medicine, the doctor, or whatever we call it, game.
The whole doctor thing,
the whole doctor thing, whatever it is we do. But no, I really do enjoy writing. I really want to continue to make writing, I think, a major part of my own career, myself personally. At some point I have aspirations to write a book. I don't know what, but I think that's something that to me has, with my own, levels of whether it be, worry or stress or, sorrow, I think to be able to put words on paper is something that has personally helped me, I think, really deal with a lot of kind of emotions and feelings and learn how to, I think, cope with them. And that to me was my coping mechanism that I think I've really been able to really develop and hopefully make a prime part of myself and my career as I move forward.
To kind of pick up where Vince and Corey were talking to, Casey, I didn't really get a chance to express my feelings about the article, but I'm in MIAA, And with an engineer, they just want facts all the time. Facts, facts, facts. Get rid of like the BS. And that was one thing that I really appreciated about the article is it had great flow to it, but it showed me the facts. Like there's a reason behind everything. And it wasn't it wasn't subjective. There was like hard-nosed data that you shared, which there's a lot of research done behind the scenes too. And put a lot more hours into it than maybe you anticipated from the get-go. You mentioned your rough drafts and the iterations that you've probably done, but I really enjoyed it. And I hopefully after we share it too, it'll shed some more light on it and maybe some more people will read it and share it amongst their networks too. But, going back at the article, there was a couple of questions that I had for you.
Yeah.
So the first one is relative to opioids and the second one is relative to binge drinking. So I don't really want to put you in a complex situation here, but from you,
you're good.
A doctor, going into a field where you'll probably be in a situation where you can subscribe items to people. I guess, what is your perspective on opioids? I've never really known anyone close or been struggling myself with opioids, so I don't know what sort of black market there is for opioids. But to me, it seems kind of hard to get your hands on. A lot of it seems prescribed by the doctors. So I don't know. Is there any sort of assessment that goes on before somebody prescribes somebody post-surgery, like before a doctor prescribes a patient with an opioid? Is there any sort of mental health assessment that goes on? Maybe you could talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a great question, Brian. Thank you so much for your feedback too. Really appreciate it. I'm glad the facts got in and was able to tie everything. So no, thank you. But yeah, so like, for example, like in the state of Michigan, we have this system. It's called the MAP system. And the MAP system is basically it overviews opioid use within kind of each patient as they've gone through some sort of medical records. Okay. And that's something that, so for example, if we have a patient that comes in, let's say like to like a family medicine clinic and say, I've got back pain, talk about opioid use. The MAP system is something that as a doctor, you can kind of look at to see, okay, what's this person's history, documented history in terms of opioid use in the past? Because that is something that really can help kind of gauge the feel as I think as a provider to kind of help you make the judgments of whether or not this is someone who, this is pretty severe pain, this is a pretty unique situation. This whole mapping system says they don't have an extensive history of opioid use. Now, there's probably nuances within that, and that's above and beyond my pay grade at this level of my education. But that's something that is out there to kind of help gauge whether or not certain people or certain patients are more at risk or have used more opioids in the past than others. Okay, that kind of makes sense. I know that's something I honestly I did not learn about this whole system until actually going through like some hospital stuff and some like outpatient, like clinical rotations. But it's cool. It's awesome to say that there are systems like this. And I have to imagine there's systems like this within the other states in the US. But this as Michigan for an example. So there is regulation here. I think states are a little bit different, but I don't want to give you misinformation. I really have no idea how it ultimately works.
I'm sure, like with anything, people who want it, who can't have it, will find a way to get it.
And that's a big part of the problem. It's one of the things that when I saw, when I saw this, and I kind of quoted it in the article, that it's usually comes down to it's usually one person. There's usually one doc that's either does not completely obey with this whole prescription opioid system, or who kind of basically goes, I want to say black market or rogue, but that's something that research kind of supports, that if you're having, especially younger patients, younger kids starting to get access to opioids, it's through a family member, and it's probably through some sort of doc that's probably not doing everything by the books. And that's something that really is kind of a harsh reality that hopefully we continue to make better, especially as as more and more docs and awareness kind of come to fruition.
Yeah, I think thanks for explaining that. I think it's like you said, to me it seems like there's a lot more work being done, especially relative to mental health lately. So I'm sure that there's regulations being in place. I'm sure that you going through school right now, maybe you're learning some things that maybe people previously 10 years ago when they were becoming a doctor, they weren't learning at the time either. But no, I appreciate your perspective on that. And the second one I wanted to hop into was relative to binge drink. You have a section in the article that talks about drinking in high school, and also not just drinking, but also binge drinking.
Mhm.
I, not to throw off the way that the article is written, but I guess when you to binge drinking, what exactly are you alluding to? Because we were talking before you were on, and when we were in college, we would binge drink probably a Friday night and Saturday night, but most of us didn't have any issues. So I guess what is considered binge drinking? Is that like drinking on your own, 5+ drinks a night, X amount of days a week? And
Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely. And I don't know if the jargon, or the specific jargon has changed or not with this, but I always kind of understood binge drinking as it's drinking to excess. It's drinking with the motivation of I am getting drunk. That is kind of like that is the binge drinking type thing. It's up and above. You have a couple of drinks, you feel a little tipsy, whatever. It's in a controlled setting where it's binge drinking with the purpose of I'm drinking to excess. Like the goal is drinking to excess. Okay, it's something that as far as I understand, binge drinking, it's as anything else. Like when you say the word binge, the binge is literally just excessive. Okay, and the goal is excessive drinking. I'm drinking to excess, and whether that be because I just want to drink to excess because I'm trying to drown out something, that's something that is there's a lot more nuances.
Or peer pressure.
Peer pressure, honestly, absolutely. But yeah, so that's kind of how I understand binge drinking. That makes sense, Brett, to answer your question appropriately?
Yeah, no, it definitely answered my question. I would just be, I guess for me, I don't know, I've been fortunate to not have mental health issues. So normally when I binge drink, it's for fun,
Yeah.
And I'm just curious to, I guess, what percentage of that binge drinking statistic is actually people that are struggling? That's what I was just curious about.
Absolutely. And that's a really good question. That's something that I can do a better job and do some more research into it and look for, because I can't give you a good number right now. It probably is a number out. It probably is a number out there though. But also to your point, because I have to imagine that people who do binge, and I'm going to be a doc, and I never encourage binge drinking to excess. But in those type of situations, again, moderation is a very important thing, and also the type of environment that you're in is a very important thing, as well as the intentions.
For sure.
If you're someone who, if it's for a good time, there's a no harm, no foul. If it's not to like drown out sorrows, or if it's not as like a coping mechanism. I think that's kind of where it starts to get really hazy, where if you're someone who has underlying like depression, who has underlying anxiety, and excessive alcohol use is what you are turning to kind of drown out those feelings of sorrow, worry. I think that's where it starts to become really, hey, this is an inappropriate and unhealthy pattern. But no, if you're someone who you don't really have those feelings of sorrowness, you don't have those worries, anxiety, if it's just, hey, it is a Friday night, I'm with the boys, I'm in a good state. I'm in a good state between the ear holes. We just want to have some drinks and have a good time. I can't, as long as you don't go too overboard, because obviously there are complications that would come with drinking too much.
Yep.
But if it's within a controlled setting and you have somebody telling you, okay, no more beer in the hand, here's the water, you're done. There's a certain like the reality aspect of it that's it's just a different narrative that's. Sure. That we talk about.
Yeah. I have one more comment, Vince, and I'll finish up here.
No, you're good.
Listening to you explain all these situations in the article, I'm not going to try and up for anything. Being a former athlete, especially at the level, and having education that you have, but also the perspective that you have. I mean, I've been to Hillsdale before. Hillsdale's like any other school. There's binge drinking going on all over the place.
Oh, yeah.
Whether we want to put on a facade that we're like the smartest school in the US, there's still people having a good time.
Yeah, exactly. Because you gotta have some fun. And I think this is where it starts to come really like. And I didn't mean to cut you off there, but it's like, it's again, it's the control environment. It's the safe, it's the safe environment. It's the intentions at which you do it. But you also, I'm of the mindset of, I think this is something that's definitely with COVID has made me, I think myself, realize too. There's got to be opportunity for each and every one of us just to learn how to cut loose and just try to relax and have fun and let yourself have fun within a safe environment. And that's the most important thing.
That's kind of what I was trying to explain was
the
way that you explained that now. I think that you would be a really good person to educate maybe like a freshman class going into college or something and just saying, hey, it's not legal, but you're going to be put in a situation and it's okay. Like, because I know a lot of kids, sometimes they do it because they're trying to defy somebody's order. Mm-hmm. And I think if the perspective is there, like, you know what, this is going to happen. You're going to come across a situation. It's not terrible, but you need to understand that these are the repercussions that will happen if you are. And I think that's there's a lot of unclarity for 18 and 19-year-olds, especially ones that grew up in high school and they were so sheltered they don't even know how to behave, and they go out and they just go nuts in college because they don't have the perspective.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Well, and that's what I wanted to add, because I don't want to get too off topic, but I'll bring this back around.
Yeah, for sure.
Being a Spanish teacher, one thing that I always talk about in my Spanish classes is culture. And something that I think a lot of people don't understand is drinking culture in the United States versus drinking culture in other countries.
It's taboo in America.
It is. It's a huge taboo. I don't think people understand that a lot of these kids have so many problems in high school and especially college with drinking because we shelter them. A lot of parents make it a taboo. They don't want to talk about it. They want to hide their kids from it instead of embrace it. A lot of European countries, they're drinking with their kids when they're preteens, 12,
and you 13, teach them how moderation
14,
happens.
And you teach them, and they have that stupid drunken moment when they're 14 years old with their family, and they do the quote unquote, get it out of their system. Right? When they're at home with family in a controlled environment and their family can moderate them. What happens here in the United States is kids grow up, and not every family, because I know plenty of people that this isn't the case, but there's lots of families where they don't talk about it with their kids at all because they just think their kids shouldn't be drinking at all. And what happens? I think it was what Brett just said. They want to fight against the man. They want to fight back. It's fun because it's illegal. It's fun because they shouldn't be doing it. So what happens? Kids drink to excess, right? Coupled with college athletes who have a lot of pressure, and it creates so many more problems.
They don't know their limit.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah, they don't.
Yep. Yeah.
I'm not saying there's like an answer to this, but I think it's something that's just ingrained in American culture, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I think
go for it.
I was just going to say, I think it's a mix. Just to kind of branch off what everybody's been saying, I had an alcohol abuse problem in college. My fourth year, pretty much all the guys I lived with all through college were moving away. They were graduating. And so I was kind of on my own. I was going to take my fifth year and come play football. I wasn't really close with the football team. I had a couple close football friends, but it was few and far between. But I was drinking 4, 5, 6 days a week. I mean, to the point where you could say I was lucky, but I wouldn't say it was lucky that I was a good athlete. I had trained really hard, like leading up to that time. So my body, like I was in shape. My body could handle drinking like that. I could still go to morning runs without problems. Luckily I was established enough in my career that I didn't really do a whole lot in spring ball. Like I was able to drink on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday and still go to spring ball practice at 6 a.m. and function normal because I would do individuals and warm-ups and I was good to go. But I do think it was like a mix of the stress of school. And Vince knows my family, Brett knows my family a little bit, but drinking was never taboo in my family. So it wasn't like a revolt. It was just like you're struggling with life and school. And like I broke up with my girlfriend at the time, who was now my wife. So like, just, I don't know. When I read your article, it kind of hit home because it was one of those things where I dealt with it and luckily I learned and it didn't like change my life or I didn't do anything ridiculously stupid, but there's definitely two sides to each story.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think there's a lot of nuance to it too. What you're describing is like there's not a blank slate. Like everyone doesn't get a blank slate with alcohol, where like A, B, C, or D will happen. There's way more nuance to it. I think I'm glad you mentioned that, Corey, because you didn't necessarily have a situation growing up where maybe alcohol was taboo. And there's lots of families in the United States where alcohol is not taboo. I don't, because it's an issue, I don't want to, embarrass somebody on the podcast, somebody listening, but I have family and friends who I know very well who, talked about it, drank in, pre-21 years old, drank in environments, with family and friends where it was safe and it was controlled so that they wouldn't grow up with that issue. But then some people just have situations where, and I'm not saying this for you, Corey, but some people have addictive personalities, or they have alcoholism in their family, or they have certain situations where it comes out. Everyone's, relationship with alcohol is different. And not to get too off track, but if you want this subject to be explored more, you should definitely watch the movie Another Round, which is nominated for an Oscar last year, Swedish or a Danish film that explores literally exactly what we were talking about, how everyone's experience with alcohol is different. Another Round, check it out. It's on Hulu. But I just think that the idea of drinking, especially for college athletes too, because that's kind of our focus here is with football players and college athletes, is something that's not necessarily the same for everybody. And I think your article does get into that too, is, it's not necessarily going to be the same situation for every person. Everyone goes through something a little bit different. And I know you've talked about that as well with us. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. It's but if anything, I think something that is just, that I think that we've been able to really have, I think, a wonderful discussion about, with, is just from the standpoint of just being able to be comfortable with just talking about it. I think above all else, that's something that we need to continue to do as, former players, as coaches, as parents, community members. But a lot of this stuff, just being able to talk about, especially with youth, and just to be open and to be real, and to highlight things of controlled environments, to highlight things of moderation, because everybody's situation is different. And to be drinking to excess to drown out feelings of depression, sorrow, stress from sport, or whatever, there's an appropriate way and an inappropriate way to kind of handle all these different things that we have going on. And when alcohol is or any sort of other drug is the inappropriate way of handling an underlying more severe stress, more severe will be depression, anxiety, that's a much different narrative than someone who it's Friday nights, you're with the boys, everyone's having a good time, you yourself are feeling good, it's a controlled environment, you got the water. Which there's nothing wrong with, but
nothing wrong
for some people there might be something wrong with
and
it.
I think Brett hit it on the head, though. I think it does need to be explained. And I have I have 4 little brothers, 2 are in high school right now, and my parents are going through a messy divorce. I'm not going to get into any of that. But one thing that I do notice is that anytime one of my parents drinks, it turns into, oh, you're drunk. Well, no, like it's legal to drink and it's okay to drink and you will drink. Like, I hate to break it to you guys. You're 16, 17 right now. When you're 18, 19, or 16, 17, 18, I mean, you could drink it any day. It's okay if you drink. Be cognizant of like what's going on and the repercussions if you make bad decisions and that, but like you won't die, like, and you won't get jolted by lightning from God. Like, you can drink and it's okay. Be aware of it.
Yep.
And I think that kind of education though is what goes by the wayside in the United States, because a lot of parents and adults, not everyone, but there's a lot of people who don't want to talk about it because they just think they shouldn't talk about it. But then that's where a lot of problems come from, is the lack of education. And I'm a public school teacher. I'll be the first one to say, that public school systems do their best to try and convey some of this stuff. But I also think if it's not being reinforced at home, if parents are not supporting their kids and like trying to sit them down and be like, here is a shot of liquor, here is a glass of wine, here is a glass of beer, here is the difference between these 3 things. You drink a lot of this little shot of liquor, you're going to get messed up way more than drinking, a few of these.
Let them test it out, baby. Let them test it out.
But my wife and I talk about doing this with our kids when they're in middle school, because I think that's an appropriate age. I'm telling you, kids are drinking in high school. They are. So why not go into high school with them being aware after a controlled environment? They do this in Europe. Like, anyone who's like, oh, what's wrong with you? Germans do this. You go to Germany,
Yeah.
these kids are drinking when they're 12 or 13 with their parents, their family, and they don't have any problems. They have way fewer DUIs. They have way fewer situations with alcohol poisoning. They don't have the get it out of your system in college because they have controlled environments where they experience it much younger. And again, there's more nuance to it than that. Everyone's different, but I think education is the most important thing.
Yeah, it's a general trend, and real is real, and that's hit the nail on the head there for sure. It's kind of just like, it's like you hear the stories of, like, for example, let's say younger Catholic schoolgirls, for example, who they are put into a situation of, it's a very religious household.
Yep.
Everything is the devil. And then by the time they get out to college and mom and dad's not there, and the research backs this up too. It's those sexual promiscuity, it goes off the charts because you've been had that shelter and just that extreme,
so in a box.
And our eyeballs have seen it.
Yeah, we all saw that in college. I mean,
yeah.
How many movies have been made about that situation? I mean,
but no, just to be open, to be comfortable talking, even some uncomfortable situations or uncomfortable topics, which don't always have to be an uncomfortable topic or situation. Just to be able to talk and communicate. That's just number one.
So one, kind of getting close to the end of the conversation here, but there are a couple things that we want to kind of add before we wrap things up.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, Casey, or maybe you did the research or kind of looked into it while writing this article. But especially, 2 years now into I can't believe this. We're almost 2 years into COVID, right? Late March was when things started shutting down in the US. We're almost to March 2022. March 2020 was when it first happened. So we're almost 2 years in. I'm sure your profession is going to be seeing 10 years from now, 10 years plus, the repercussions of the kids who were 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, who had to, that age range, the teenagers who had to deal with 2 years of losing sports seasons, being isolated at home for 1 to 2 years, having to do school online, not going to school at all. And I could, the list goes on and on of all of the unfortunate situations that not only athletes, college athletes, high school athletes, but just kids in general have had to deal with. But obviously, we're kind of focusing on football and college athletes here and high school athletes. Is there anything that you have seen looking into this? Again, it's very early. But is there anything that you're aware of at this point in terms of mental health and COVID with athletes that maybe, could be added to kind of this conversation that we're having?
Yeah, for sure. That's a good question. It really is a good question. I mean, I touched on it a little bit, in the article, especially the whole periods of isolation thing. And again, how are, all of a sudden, because it was so sudden, it was such a sudden onset. And I think that's something that, it was literally, March, whatever day it was, man, everything is normal. The next day it's lockdown central everywhere, and that's something that, when you have such a sudden, acute, intense change like that, man, that's a nidus for screwing up how between the ear holes, how that whole brain kind of cycles and shifts about and kind of processes. We've definitely seen increases in stuff like cannabis use and misuse. That's one thing that I was able to kind of touch on in the article. But I think since putting this out and since having all the research together, it's gonna be interesting, both fascinating. Hopefully there's positive ways, and I'm a type of person where I try to find the silver linings and everything, and try to find the because there's a lot of positive stuff that has come out, in terms of people who do have, like, especially bad social anxiety, that they've been able to be actually more successful being in periods of more isolation, especially with schooling. And that's that's a different topic for a different day. But yeah, I don't know. I absolutely feel for every student athletes that, their last season was cut short. I don't have a good answer for that one. I really don't. I mean, if anything, like I said, it's talk, communication. How are you doing? And if you need help, by God, just get help. And it's okay to get help. I think that is, the number of people, the demand for psychiatry right now amongst all professions within medicine it's off the charts.
Oh yeah, which
You
is,
know,
I mean, it's scary, but it's a good thing. It's scary that so many people are having problems, but it's a good thing. I think that people are seeking help.
exactly. Yeah,
So
exactly.
you want to see people trying, doing what they can to get help.
Exactly. And, it's like, and especially when we talk about like conditions of the brain, for instance, the psychiatry really focuses on kind of conditions of the brain, right? It just as like cardiology, for example, it's like conditions of the heart. Again, it's how we kind of tell, it's kind of, I think, how we talk about it. I know there's still this big stigmata that's against, seeking help,
Especially for men.
Especially for men.
I don't want to, get into like, I don't even know what to call it, but sound like, I don't know, some big, I don't want to get into politics, I guess, or sound political or anything, but toxic masculinity has been a big conversation, in sports, especially, and in football is a big sport where toxic masculinity has been a point of conversation without trying to, sound like I'm left or right lean or whatever. I'm not trying to take a stance on it, but it's just been a topic of conversation. I think it is something that, people have brought up, and I think it's affected a lot of young men in football, that they have been felt, or they have been made to feel like that they can't talk to someone, they got to tough it out or man up. You can't have a conversation about anything you're going through, because you just got to tough through it.
It's okay to not be okay.
Yeah,
it's okay to not be okay.
Gosh,
and to talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's especially like within like the realm of like competition, for example, it's knowing also like when to kind of like switch those gears and when to be open and when to be vulnerable. Like I said, if you're in the middle of, a football game or whatever, that's not necessarily the best time to, hopefully, break down and open up. That's competition, right? It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. There's a part of it that comes with knowing when to be vulnerable and knowing if you're not okay going into that situation, do not put yourself and do not put those around you in that situation. You need to take a step back. And that's, we've seen that, for example, with Simone Biles. She took a tremendous thing. She got a lot of criticism, but she took a step back. And, that's one of the hardest things to do, but I commend her for doing that though, at the same time. So it's a tough economy, but, no, just what you said, to be open and to be vulnerable, and to Corey's point, to say it's hey, I'm not okay, because a lot of us, there's parts of that are just not okay. That's something that we do ultimately share. All right. And again, to be open, to be vulnerable, for me, like, the whole reason I want to really go into dermatology is because I always struggled with my appearance. I struggled. I struggled losing my hair early. I couldn't say, I looked to myself.
Corey can talk with you about that too.
I'm right there with you, brother.
No, for sure. It's especially when, because like to me, it was like the first I shaved my head was like 18. Lost a freaking Super Bowl bet, Denver Broncos. Yeah, way it comes through for me, Manning. I think that was they lost. I think they lost to the Panthers. I think it was the Panthers.
Cam Newton with the Panthers.
Yeah. And I lost a bet, buzzed my head. I was like, oh my gosh, the amount of just skin that's in between the hair, it was growing. And I was like, you know what? Shoot, it's no turning back. And it was a tough transition. It was something that also played to my identity. I struggled being, as a lineman, I also struggled being a big old guy, and that's something that it affects a lot of guys, especially a lot of guys who are linemen. I think that's something that, to me now, what I want to try to do as hopefully a dermatologist someday is, especially with guys, to, hey, embrace your appearance, and I'll do what I can to try to help you with your appearance, but just to be able to embrace things. And there's certain things that medicine is really great at helping. But at the end of the day, it's also learning how, again, what's that narrative that we tell ourselves, and to be okay and to be accepting. And that's something that you got to go through together. At least I personally feel.
Yeah, they say, one of the hardest things is, loving and accepting yourself. You can't love others or be accepting of others if you don't love and accept yourself.
Oh, it's true. It's maybe corny, but it's true. It's really true.
Is. 100% is.
Really
I mean, they say, people who have issues, bringing others down or being negative of others, that, psychology says it's just they're projecting their own feelings and other people, that they're having trouble, accepting themselves. And that it's hard. A lot of people deal with a lot of different things, and there's a lot of different pressures. And one of the last things I would like to bring up here is, and we're kind of on this topic already, is social media too, is another thing that, all of us, being, getting into our late 20s here. Corey, sorry, is already 30, but and Brett and I turned 30 later this year. What are you, Casey? Are you 26, 27?
27 now. Yeah. It's
okay. So you're late 20s.
It's getting there though. We're getting
there,
all
man.
over soon. It's all
over. Yeah. Yeah, I know.
Just beginning.
But all of us had kind of the unique situation where, and I don't know how much you guys see it, because I work with teenagers every day, where we didn't grow up with cell phones and social media. It kind of came about through our life. You know what I mean? Like, we saw the progression of smartphones and social media and the internet through middle school and high school and college. I mean, I'm sure you guys are similar, but I didn't get a smartphone till college. I wasn't really using Instagram and Twitter till college. I had a Facebook in high school, but the only time I could ever really use it is if I had a computer. I couldn't use it on my phone. Whereas the kids that we're seeing now, some of these kids have social media and smartphones from the time they're 10. I heard a thing on the radio about a study done, because this is crazy to think about. They now have more than 10 years of data, because there are kids who are 20, 21 years old, 22 years old, who have had smartphones for 10 or more years. So, which is unbelievable. So because they now have more than 10 years of data to go off of, which supposedly, 10 years of data is a good, chunk of data to make a point, or to convey some sort of an idea, that they are seeing, I'm trying to think how to word it correctly, because I don't remember verbatim what they said in the, the article that I read about, but they are seeing that kids who have been using smartphones and social media and the internet for more than 10 years, that there's a lot of negative side effects. One of which is literally issues with their brains, like actual noticeable size issues. Is it the frontal cortex or the frontal
frontal cortex? That's all the higher upper processing.
Yes, is literally these kids. It's not developing the same as normal human beings, because they say that staring at a screen on your smartphone and scrolling and engaging in social media and all that stuff, it's like it's at 10 years old or younger, it is inhibiting that area of the brain, or causing issues with it, which is messed up. It's crazy. But now we got to think about, okay, the 17, 18-year-old kids, whatever, that are going to go play college football or play college sports, that's something else they're dealing with. Because at the end of the day, what are any of the four of us going to do about kids getting smartphones? There's nothing we can do about it.
No.
When we grow up, when we're parents, which I already am a parent, and so is Brett, our kids aren't, old enough to get smartphones yet, but the only thing we can really do in our immediate lives is educate our own kids.
Oh my gosh.
There's nothing we can do nationally about it, but this is just something else added to your article. You got substance abuse, you got COVID, and now we are more than 10 years deep into kids dealing with social media and smartphones. And we're seeing the effects of that. And this is something we've talked about in here before, how football for high school kids has become like a clout thing on social media, where they're so engaged in social media and trying to post about 7-on-7 leagues and all of their offers, whether it's D3, even D, which I don't want to disparage any kids for being excited about that, but I feel like it's to a detriment for a lot of kids, and it's that grass is always greener, comparing themselves to other people on social media, which I think is just going to create, unfortunately, more problems. But at the end of the day, we're not going to change social media. We're not going to change phones. I think, and you kind of touch on your article, I just think education is the most we can do. Talk to kids, educate them about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that definitely has the makings of perhaps a follow-up article to this with social media.
Yeah, part 2 coming up, man.
Part 2, man, no, because it's real, and I'm a firm believer that there's a lot of good that can be done with social media. I was
Absolutely.
able to do, and I was able to do an awesome social media fundraiser for a well-known Durham kind of a funding organization, and made its way to actually an in-person type of bake sale type event. that proceeds went to this foundation for research and for patient care. So there's a lot of good things like that. But yeah, there's some stuff out there in social media that I'm just like, and I remember Snapchat started back when I was in high school. Oh my God,
I remember Snapchat. It was like my freshman year of high school. I do remember. I was like, Snapchat. I was like, what the hell is this?
Exactly.
Because that was something that I didn't really get into right away. But
exactly.
It's crazy to think that we've seen all this stuff come out, but there's kids, there's literally kids growing up with it.
Well, yeah, and then you have all these like filters and whatnot. And you get kids who are really young, and you get them used to seeing all these different filters. But again, it's just like it's like reality versus altered reality. And again, how are kids learning how to see themselves and how to see others? And that's something that really scares me with social media, because a lot of things can get really manipulated really easily and really fast. If you ever get a chance, I don't know if you talked about this or you've seen this, but The Social Dilemma on Netflix. Where basically
I know I need to watch. I have not actually taken time to watch it yet.
I know if you get, you guys are so busy right now, but just get a chance at some points. Please do watch it. My fiance and we watched it, and it's basically people who were amongst the originators of Google, of Facebook, the guy who invented the likes sign on Facebook, and it's like people who intentions are good. Like there's not like a completely evil people, good people, but how social media had gotten taken off, and just it's just insane. It's an insane watch, and kind of the realities in terms of like ultimately at the end of the day, like amount of screen time is how so many of these different social media apps, that's how they compete. It's screen time. How much time am I gonna get people looking at me? That's one thing with the TikTok is the big one right now. And it's like one of those where again it's a double-edged sword, because there's some stuff on there that's really funny, or that's like really helpful or really informative,
or education.
Education. But at the same time, there's also stuff in there that's just like, oh my God, well, what the heck is this?
I'm 1 year sober on TikTok.
Corey was addicted to TikTok for I don't know how many months.
Probably like 6 months during COVID, and then I just like literally deleted the app. I was like, I got to get rid of this.
You guys might remember this. My sophomore year of college in 2012 to 2013, I was addicted to Vine. And that's why I will not get into TikTok, because Vine, with those, 7-second videos, like I would catch myself scrolling, and like I would, all of a sudden an hour went by, and what did I do with my time? I wasted an hour of my time just watching 7-second nonsensical videos. And some of them were funny, or some were maybe entertaining, but it was just a waste of my time. So that's why I refused to get into TikTok, because I remember I got addicted to Vine. I mean, a lot of that stuff, you're bringing up the documentary, The Social Dilemma. A lot of that social media is centered around finding ways to get you to stay on it.
Exactly.
Right? Whether their intentions are good or bad, they got to make their money, right? They got to get advertising. They got to find a way to keep you on there. And a lot of it between the likes and, all kinds of things, they find ways to suck you in with the endorphins or whatever.
Yeah.
You're like, ooh, a like.
When you see something that your brain just registers, oh my gosh, I like this, I'm just going to spend a little bit more time on. And all of a sudden you're going to get more posts, and you're going to see more videos just like that. And that's one of the things, especially, it's people who are prone, for example, to believing in like really bad, like conspiracy theories, let's per se. There is, they talked about, how, social media, it potentiates people who are prone to believe in stuff like conspiracy theories to believe in them. The whole misinformation, or whatever we want to call it, that's a legit thing.
Yeah.
It's because of how a lot of social media, again, education and proper education and learning what is reputable and what is not. And just being able, again, just to be open and be vulnerable. I think if we take away anything, if people who read my article, take away anything, I just hope it's that. And that's, reality is reality, but there's something we can do to change it. And it just comes to, first you just gotta admit it, as a community, as parents, coaches, whatever.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, the most important thing is education, and especially with us talking about youth. I mean, how else are you going to help the youth but to educate them on, what's best for them in terms of people's personal experiences and, some of this this stuff that we're talking about, these important topics. So
Yeah, exactly.
Brett or Corey, you guys have anything else to add? Otherwise, we've had Casey on for about an hour and a half now, so I don't want to take too much more of his evening here. It's getting late.
We appreciate what you do, Casey. We're happy that you were able to join us, and I really enjoyed your article. So I'm excited for other people to get to enjoy it and get to share it.
Yeah, thanks for chat, Casey. Great to meet you. I appreciate you coming on. It was a pleasure to have you here. Get to know you and keep the Hillsdale streak going.
Yeah, no, likewise. No, Vince, Corey, Brett, no, exceptional honor, and thank you so much for the opportunity. You know, y'all are a heck of a group, and just keep up the good work. And I do sincerely mean it. You guys doing a good job.
Well, thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And if you want to check out Casey's article, we will have in the description of the video version of the podcast a link to the article, as well as the description boxes. If you're on a podcast or Apple or Spotify, you will be able to find the link there as well. And when we share this out, it's Tuesday night that we're recording. Hoping to have the episode up sometime late on Wednesday. If not, by Thursday morning, we will share the link with it as well. Casey, thank you for joining us, man. Appreciate your time. If you were listening, appreciate you taking time to listen. Obviously a very important topic and a lot of conversation here about things that, you know, are very important for all athletes. And we appreciate Casey taking time to talk to us. Hope you enjoyed the conversation with our guest, Casey Schukow. Again, we will have that article that he wrote linked for you, so you can check that out. We're going to wrap things up here with Brett's recommendation of the week. Brett, take it away.
All right. So I talked about the dominance of the teams in Zeeland in football this week. So I'm going to stay in the corridor and recommend a little taco joint called Streats Tacos, STR, all caps, Eats Tacos. It's located right downtown Zeeland. If you haven't been downtown, it's a nice little quaint town. This is right across the street from the splash pad, but I want to direct you towards an interesting type of taco on their menu. It's called the American Burger Taco. I'm not kidding you. It is literally probably the best taco I've ever had. It tastes like a cheeseburger on a taco.
Say the name of the taco again.
Streets.
No, the name of the taco.
The taco.
Oh, American cheeseburger.
American cheese.
Oh, real original.
It is so good. I'm not even kidding you. And then I also, when I was there, I've pretty much had all the tacos, except like the veggie tacos. Those are for the veggies and not
me.
Yeah, those are for people on diets like Corey.
That's messed up.
No, the American cheeseburger, highly recommend it. Streets Tacos, Zeeland, Michigan. They're applying for their alcohol permit now that Zeeland was allowing more bars in town to serve alcohol. They didn't actually, fun fact, they didn't serve alcohol in Zeeland until 2006 in bars and restaurants. And then they allowed 2 restaurants to serve alcohol, and now expanded it because I think they understand the business that they're missing out on. But,
yeah. Geez,
You think?
Streets in Zeeland, Michigan. Check it out. Pretty good. Taco sent you, and you'll get 10% off.
NIL deal here with Streets Taco.
Wear a Great Lakes State football shirt and you get 5% off.
I will have if they
wear your Great Lakes State football shirt there, and I'll buy your taco.
I'm assuming they have probably a Facebook or an Instagram or a Twitter. I will have whatever their social media page is. I'll check after this. Once I get this episode up, I'll have them linked. Brett's recommendation for Streets Taco in Zeeland, Michigan, linked, so you can check them out. Well, thank you for listening here to Great Lakes State Football episode 14. Hope you enjoyed listening. Once you are done listening, make sure you follow us on Twitter at GLSFball, spelled BALL. Make sure you follow us on Instagram, Great Lakes State Football. If you enjoy the video versions of the podcast on YouTube, Great Lakes State Football on YouTube, please subscribe. Appreciate any subscribe, like those videos, share, comment. Appreciate it. We also have audio versions of the episodes as well. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, don't forget to drop us a 5-star review and leave a comment telling us how much you love us. I'm Vince, Great Lakes State Football episode 14. We got Brett. Corey, go green. Go Chargers.
Panthers.
Go Lions.
Go Panthers.
Shit, Pat.